Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Natural Super Kids podcast. If you're a parent, which I'm imagining most of you listening are, you are going to love this episode. I am joined by some very special guests, Eleanor and Emma from the Reconnected. We've done an episode with Eleanor from the Reconnected before on strong-willed children, which was a really popular episode, parenting strong-willed children. That is episode 51, and we'll link that in the show notes for anyone who has missed it. Today's conversation is all about authentic over calm parenting. This really will shift your perspective on some of those calm parenting techniques that we may have learnt and may be striving for in our parenting. So Emma and Eleanor basically bust that unrealistic view that we can always that we should always be calm parents no matter what our kids are going through. And I just love what they've got to say about authenticity when it comes to our parenting. We talk about regulation, emotional regulation for children and for parents. And Eleanor and Emma have a really special, exciting event coming up. It's completely free. It is called the Kids Nervous System Reset. And we are going to have a link in the show notes so that you can sign up for this. It's a mini retreat for parents. And I know after listening to the wisdom of Eleanor and Emma, you are all going to want to rush on over and be signing up. This event starts on the 16th of September 2022. So if you're listening to this in real time, you have plenty of time to sign up, and I would encourage you all to do so. Here's Eleanor and Emma. Hello, welcome Eleanor and Emma from the Reconnected. So good to have you here.
So good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Do you know, this is my first 3 people podcast, so this is a bit exciting.
Oh, that's cool. Milestone. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, we love jamming, so I think when 3 awesome women get together, magic happens.
Yes.
Definitely. Yes, I'm so excited for this conversation. So let's get straight into it. Let's start by exploring this concept of authentic over calm. Can you ladies explain this to us?
Yeah, well, this is really one of the most popular topics in our community because so many parents come to our community and they have read all of the gentle parenting books. They associate with wanting to be the calm and gentle parent, and they've read everything that they can, and yet they have a toddler and they can't stay calm and they can't stay gentle 24 hours out of the day. It's not possible. And it's like that scenario where you're trying your hardest to stay calm, but you are full of gritted teeth. And no matter what you say, your kids still don't listen. And then you end up exploding, and then you feel guilty, and you're kind of just trapped in that constant, never-ending cycle. And there's actually some really good reasons why we can't stay calm all the time and why it doesn't work. And it is attributed to our nervous system and also how our children really bounce from our congruence. So being truly congruent with them, being really honest and truthful about where we are and what we're really expressing.
Yeah, because what actually is happening when we try and stay calm, like Emma was saying, we often actually just see an escalation. Like we try and stay calm, our kids tend not to listen, and then we grit our teeth even further, And it's not just toddlers, it's probably every single probably happens in most relationships actually, but you really see this dynamic between parents and kids. So when we are trying to stay calm, it's like we've got a facade of calm over the top of what we're actually feeling, which is usually something like frustration, anything from mild frustration to complete rage, let's face it, depending on the scenario. And what happens in co-regulation, people think about regulation as being calm. If I'm calm, my kids will be calm. And there's truth in it. But what's happening when our children are doing something that frustrates us and we try to be calm on the inside? We're putting a mask of calm over the top, and our children actually pick up. In co-regulation, our children pick up the messages directly from our nervous system. So not from what we feel like we're putting out there. So they see straight past the mask on an emotional level, and they react to the emotions that we're feeling underneath the mask of calm. So what actually is happening is that mask is confusing. It's like when a child is dysregulated and upset, they're looking for safety. And when their caregiver is incongruent, so trying to stay calm but feeling frustrated, they can feel the frustration, but the outer doesn't match the inner. It actually causes more stress for the child, and so they escalate.
Wow, that's so interesting.
You'll see this when it really takes for you to explode and be your truthful, rageful self, that things all of a sudden but then we also don't want to get to that stage. So many of us then feel the guilt and the remorse and the shame and the whipping, so we're stuck in that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly why, like, have you heard parents say, or have you experienced this with your kids? My kids only listen when I lose it.
Yeah.
It's actually, my kids only feel safe when my inner and outer world match each other.
Wow, that's such a different way of looking at it,
looking
isn't
at
it?
Yeah. And if we can help our inner and outer world match way before we lose it, then children will feel safer and be able to regulate, de-escalate, listen, connect, stay connected. It's a bit like connect before correct.
Yeah.
They'll be able to connect. We'll be able to correct way before we lose it. It's such a paradigm shift. And there's just so much information out there that repeatedly gives parents the message that if you're not calm, your child won't be calm.
Yeah, or you've failed as well. You failed if you can't stay calm. Yeah. And we try, We try and have that calm. I'm speaking to you in a very, I'm very calm. And it still doesn't work.
Yeah. And what came up for me is like we're almost, they can see through it, like you're saying, they can really sense that. So it's almost like we're teaching them no matter what you're feeling underneath, you've got to, exude this calm.
You've got to fake it. Yeah. And it's so related. Like you can really pick it up adult to adult. When your partner is actually seething underneath and they're doing the dishes, but they're slamming them onto the thing, but they're like totally fine. I'm totally fine. That's what children are picking up as well. But it has been kind of curated and masked as gentle parenting.
Adult to adult is a really good example because as adults, we co-regulate with the adults that we're close to. So we don't co-regulate to our children. Our children co-regulate to us. We co-regulate with our partners or our best friends or just the people who we feel really safe and can be ourselves with. It's a really good example. That feeling of, if you imagine the last time you could tell there was something that your partner wasn't being truthful to you and they were seething, just how uncomfortable it is to be around.
Yeah, the tension.
And how much it puts you on edge. and you're trying to figure out what's wrong, or you know there's something wrong, but you can't put your finger on it. That's kind of how children feel when we're doing like the calm face, the calm voice, the trying to pick them up and put them in their car calmly, but we're actually starting to hold them a little bit tightly. It's like, all of that is quite unsettling for children. And so the more that we try to stay calm, the less safe it feels. So you can see why it just escalates in that situation for everyone.
And it takes the pressure off, right? We don't have to always be calm. We can. So what's the alternative? Like what? Yeah. How do we do this right?
What do we do?
Well, it's actually really about smashing the myth that it is even possible or normal to be calm all the time. It's unrealistic. It is a benchmark that nobody has achieved.
So true.
So that is the first step, is unpacking where you even picked up that concept from, who has modeled it around you. Because I would love to know someone who has met someone who can hold it down. And also it's about getting current with your feelings. So that's a big part about staying authentic, is because as parents, we have so many backlog of things that we're stressed about, that our nervous system is trying to hold. And so it's harder for us to hold space for our children in these moments, because we're actually, kind of chock blocked, holding on to the bills that are coming, the schedule that we've got to keep up with, all this type of stuff.
Things,
So we need to stay current with our emotions. And this is where working directly with our nervous system through breath work is really powerful.
Yes. Okay. So we've touched on regulation a little bit, but can you tell us? Well, tell the people that are listening, what do parents know or need to know about regulation? Maybe this is a new term for some people, or maybe they just don't really know how to do it.
It's really important to know that when your child is losing it or refusing something or saying no, which is usually one of those times, they're escalated. So we recognize that a child in that state is dysregulated. They're not in balance, they're not available for connection, they're not themselves feeling able to connect with you or listen or come around. That there's an important reason why we can't stay calm, or why we also start to feel a little bit escalated and dysregulated. And what's actually happening is we're picking up what they are putting down. It's giving us a window into what they might be experiencing. This is thanks to, mirror neurons, the way that our nervous systems communicate with each other. And so as a parent, wanting our kids to always be regulated is also completely unrealistic. But, their dysregulation gives us a clue about what they're feeling. And we're designed that way so that we can go, okay, we're getting stressed. This is a window. And now I know now I've got some ideas about what they need. It actually is designed to put us into action instead of, usually what happens is we start to go into that, I need to calm, I need to de-escalate this situation, etc. So the other most important thing about regulation is not about this myth, this kind of seeking this state of calmness and peace in all those moments. It's actually about expanding our ability to feel safe, feeling uncomfortable emotions. Oh, I'm feeling tense, and that's okay. I'm feeling angry, they're feeling angry, and that's okay. It's actually rewiring our relationship with those emotions so that we can stay present regardless of what's happening, regardless of what they're going through, regardless of how it is for us being with them while they're going through it. And if we can stay connected and communicate in those moments, which for younger kids, sometimes, we want it to be all about talking and calm talking, but actually they don't communicate quite that way, especially if they're under the age of 5. And it's just all about connection in those moments. And that's how we regulate. So we get so many people asking us, how do I do this? What does this look like? Everyone wants a script, etc. But whilst, of course, I'm a play therapist, counselor, we've got all the scripts,
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, I often say I have every single tool I could possibly have. And I can tell you, when you're a parent, those scripts don't actually make much of a difference, because when we use them, we're doing the same thing as trying to be calm. Like, we're trying to get it right. We're trying to get, and a very alive moment often feels quite chaotic, right, by using a script. So most of the tools that we teach at the Reconnected are aimed at helping people to get really in touch with themselves, to feel safe, to let go of all their stored stress that's built up in their system from life circumstances, also potentially just from their childhood triggers, so that they can stay in contact with themselves. And then you don't need someone to tell you how to be in that moment, because you arrive in it.
It's a body
quite
process.
profound.
Yeah, it's a physical, tangible experience instead of an intellectual one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, what happens for parents who go through a lot of our programs is they'll say to us, I was in that situation where I would normally lose my mind, and I just felt so much space. I just could respond the way I wanted to. I didn't lose it. I was just there. I could see what they needed. I knew how to respond. And that's regulation. That's nervous system regulation.
And I just think, like what you've just said, it's not that, like, regulation all the time is not the goal. It's about it's that internal work, isn't it, that we can
well, regulation isn't just a straight line of just one sensation. Regulation is actually a constant up and down movement, a flow. And so you're regulating with the circumstance instead of it just being a flat line of calm. I feel this perfect level of rested all the time.
Yes.
It's really switching our thinking and understanding what true regulation is, instead of this idealistic version.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, it's closer to being with what is and being able to express what is, which is where, we say our kids need us to be authentic, not calm, and we need to be with what's arising and be with our children, as opposed to this idea of calm. It's like this perfectionistic kind of tendency has crept in,
Yeah.
and it's really easy to really want it, because no one actually wants to be feeling really horrible feelings all the time, like always angry. We all know there's days where you can wake up in the morning and feel like, oh, I don't know how I can do this, and then the day itself doesn't improve. So of course we all want to move out of those spaces, but doing that just requires a level of showing up for self-inquiry and, being able to kind of move through some of those things.
Yes, rather than trying to escape it, which is what kind of the norm is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And also not using the word authentic as an excuse to dump and blame and shame and purge your less than ideal self onto your children or the people around you. That's not what true authenticity is. True authenticity is being able to be angry but feel safe in your anger, and have the anger actually be quite constructive and creative. And so it's felt by everyone around you that, hey, I'm actually, I'm quite upset with what is going down right now, but it doesn't have yourself and your children feeling unsafe in it. And some people cannot even
fathom it.
Fathom that level of, powerful emotion, because we've had such unhealthy reflections around us. And I'm the first to admit I had never experienced safe anger before until I went through my breathwork training, because I come from a very English suppressed background. Anger was only ever extremely explosive or very kind of, slam the doors, slam the plates, don't talk about it, nobody feels safe, eggshells. And it was really, it wasn't until I was with myself in my practice that I learnt how to be angry but stay with myself at the same time. That's true authenticity, where you don't, because everyone can understand, parents here, you get angry and it's like you step away from yourself in that moment, and you do and you say things that aren't safe, don't feel good, and have you feeling guilty. There is a way of being with anger that you can feel really empowered afterwards. And you're like, wow, I just made things happen. I just got everyone to listen to me. I just made momentum. I just made movement. That's true authenticity, because I think some people, they just don't have any concept truly of what it is to be with, and not just anger, grief, upset, any of the difficult ones that our society has had us suppress and hide in shame.
That's right.
Yeah, because there are some parents that feel so guilty when they're truly upset, and they won't cry in front of their children or move through grief. And that in itself, children will poke and provoke you until you do in some way. So yeah, it's just about being with our authentic selves, and that is just a whole new way of learning to be with. It's an exciting journey. It's actually extremely empowering, because there is nothing like being able to, be with anger that is creative and powerful and empowering instead of disempowering.
When we've had a lifetime of, don't cry and, calm down. And all of those messages. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really, we are the pioneers in this generation. If we want our children, because so many of us want our children to, feel safe to be angry when they're angry and have their boundaries. And they can't do that without us pioneering it. And we're really having to teach ourselves, because we have just come out of many eras of these really suppressed emotions.
And we're still living in one. Yeah.
Still living in one, 100%. Lucky we just, these days have memes that, give us a little bit of grace.
The occasional wake up.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, I can talk from experience that, and I know we've talked a little bit about younger kids and toddlers, but, I've got a 12 and a 14-year-old, and I feel like this is like a really challenging kind of shift in parenting perspective as well. So there's so many opportunities at different stages for us to work on this stuff, right?
Yeah, and right into your adults too, because healing is, there's never a moment where you can't heal, even in adult to adult parent relationships. That is where I really learnt how to express my embodied anger, because I had things to say. I looked back and I was like, wait a minute, we need to have a discussion here. And I couldn't actually do that for so many years, because my anger would be a projection where it would cause a lot of disconnection and disharmony. And it was with my breath practice that I was able to be angry but stay connected with my parents whilst I was, clarifying some of my childhood.
Yes.
It's interesting with teenage kids, I think, Jessica. Do you relate to now looking back at the toddler years and thinking, wow, that was way easier than I thought it was? Now's where it gets really hard. And you kind of, no doubt, people said that to you when you had toddlers and you look at them and you think, you roll your eyes and you're like, wow, you're so
how
out of
hard
touch
can
with
it be? They're independent.
Yeah.
They're doing their own
Truly.
thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
But in a lot of ways, this, because, my children are now aged from 12 to about to turn 20. I've got 4 kids in between that age gap. And that kind of second stage, that the tween and teenage years, it's actually a really powerful opportunity for kids to resolve and integrate the things that happened when they were younger. So, we always feel, I think sometimes as parents, that we've missed opportunities, or that we might feel regretful over things that we might have gone through as a family. But what can happen is actually when we learn, because, this process of becoming more authentic and actually getting in touch with what's really going on in all our relationships, including our relationships with our kids, it gives us an opportunity to move through some of those things. So teenagers will, you will know now, throw at you on a whole nother level, what's going on for them in an internal world. I'm sure you're aware of that thing when your teenage comes home and you can tell instantly that something's happened at school, because all of a sudden you're the punching bag.
Yes.
For, no real reason. So, a lot of the work that we do in play therapy is learning how, as parents, we can work with that projection. But that takes a level of authenticity and a level of feeling very safe with emotions and very depersonalized about what our kids might be throwing at us. Kids, it's common for parents to say, you can't talk to me like that. Show me some respect, blah, 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 blah. And I remember feeling like that when my kids were that age. I was like, hang on a minute, you have to respect me. And I'd think, where do these parenting ideas come from? It's not even how I think. But, teenagers really will trigger you beyond what you thought was gonna be like. And there are ways of being with our children that really help them to get to the bottom of what's going on. And the reality is, we are their safe place, and they will come and use the relationship to unburden themselves of things. And if we can see it within that context of, this is a dysregulated child who doesn't have a safe enough place apart from here to come back to themselves or to understand what's going on, if we can be authentic and safe within ourselves and within the relationship, then the relationship is a place where they can come and unburden themselves of those stresses and not carry them with them. I think we can all relate to, exiting our teenage years feeling a little bit, I don't know how you guys were, but I felt a bit beaten up, like it was like
absolute turmoil.
Yeah. So, we can do things quite differently with our children when we're aware of what's really going on, but it really does take a paradigm shift in understanding what our kids' behavior is telling us and what our kids' behavior is bringing up in us.
Yeah.
And we're just all about completely shifting, just the paradigm so that kids aren't needing to do kind of tons of therapy or self-awareness work in their 30s and 40s when they're parents, that they're grounded in the truth, that they don't hold unrealistic expectations of themselves, that they can enjoy themselves more. We know from working with so many parents now that we can achieve that for ourselves and then hold the space for our children to experience that right from the beginning. It really is wonderful, but it does take a degree of, work, quote unquote work.
Yeah, a willingness to look at things differently, be a pioneer. For
and
the
it's
generations
such
in our
important
parenting
work, isn't it? I mean, this is the relationship with our kids, and like you said, this really flows through to all relationships. I had this exact situation happen yesterday. My son came home from school and he was all grumpy. I don't want to go to camp. We're going to this really terrible place, and blah, blah, blah.
He must be 14.
And I was Was that?
He must be 14. I just dealt with Year 9 camp as well.
And, I felt myself going, but camp's fun. Or like, and I paused. I'm like, so what, I just got curious. What is it that you're really not looking forward to? And it led to this like really great discussion. So, just sort of digging in and getting curious rather than sort of,
solutions.
Well, you have to go and it's part of being at school.
Power over. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it takes a lot of self-awareness and that sort of pausing before you're reacting.
It's a lifetime's work when you're parenting. Yeah.
Yes.
It truly is. And, so many of us want our world to be peaceful and, enlightened. And I love that quote by Hannah Dahlen, who's the head of Midwifery Australia. She says, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world." And it's so true, because it's like being able to hold our children and hold these spaces for them so that they can move out into the world and hold these for other people and hold, the heavier energies and the realization that not everything is blissful, rosy, gentle. The world itself isn't gentle,
Yeah.
It's a beautiful concept and hopefully we're working towards it. But we just have to get real and we have to be authentic without dumping and shaming.
Yes. And I just love that this concept has, just helped to shifting perspectives, which is so important. And moving away from that idealistic view of what it should be and that calm parenting view that I'm sure so many of our listeners have read all of those calm parenting books and feeling like a failure because they're still losing their stuff every now and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you will notice is when you do access and help your nervous system, there are so many more calm moments. Because when we're trapped
they're authentically calm.
They're authentically calm because we aren't trapped in that cycle of guilt tripping, which is heavy. And then so therefore we have lightened the load and we've unpacked whatever it is that we are carrying around. And so we can have more authentic, calm moments. It's just that isn't at the helm. It's not this unattainable, whimsical goal that so many of us have been trying to attain.
Yes,
it's not a should. Yeah, it comes with because you lighten the load.
It's because you've made that internal space. That's really the power of using the breath, as opposed to having a script or learning what it looks like and then trying to mimic it. Instead, when you use the breath, you go straight to the nervous system. You work on your stored dysregulation, your regulation, you learn to be with, and it just creates moments that feel quite honestly magical when they happen. Like, oh, wow, there's that space I've been craving. And so you can't really make that happen from your mind, You actually have to go to the level of your body to create that space. So the breath is really the most profound and effective way of going straight there and doing that.
Yes, and tapping into that, like what that authenticity is for you, rather than like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to say. That's, that doesn't come out authentic. It's not authentic.
No.
Yeah,
it
so
has good intentions, but it doesn't land for children because they really can shine a light on our triggers,
they
right?
They look at you and they're like, what is this script?
No,
I don't know about this. It sounds very forced.
Oh, yes, my sister's a counsellor. So my daughter now, she's 12, she'll go, you sound like Auntie Emma. You're pulling out the counselling,
Yeah. Don't counsel me is
that sounds
the top
really
thing
hard,
that gets yelled at me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Don't do that counselling thing.
They pick it up for sure. All right, so this has been such a great conversation. I'm sure the listeners have gotten a lot even just out of this kind of introductory conversation with you ladies, but you've got something exciting coming up. Tell us about it and how we can get involved.
Well, probably the top thing, once parents have come to the Reconnected, done some breath work, discovered that it can create that internal space, parents tend to say to us then, can I do breath work with my kids? I want to teach breath work with to my children. And you can, especially older children, it's really helpful. But children actually regulate through play. They don't actually need to learn a set of tools, or ways of breathing to connect to their nervous system. They are connected. It's actually a very adult way of looking at children, is that they might need to, sit down,
take a few breaths,
etc.
We'd love that to be a realistic
good luck with
thing,
that with
right?
a 3-year-old or a 14-year-old.
Exactly.
Or even a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old,
Yeah. Kids, we have this saying that kids don't say, I've had a hard day. They say, will you play with me? But that's a play therapy saying. But we say, kids rarely say, will you play with me? They actually just, if they're having a hard time, they'll hit their sister or throw their dinner on the ground. And so there are ways of being with children through play, but also through just understanding what their behavior is telling you about their level of dysregulation, whether they're in flight, fight, freeze, or fawn, and ways of using play therapy techniques to help them to regulate, to help them to process, to help them to have those conversations where they, conversations, quote unquote, through play, where they feel unburdened and where they get that feeling of space. And in play therapy, the parents are always the plan A. When a child comes for play therapy, when a parent brings a child to see a play therapist, the first thing we think about is, how can I actually help the parent to have the skills to do this, as opposed to putting a child into therapy away from their family system. It's so empowering for parents to have the tools to help their children to process and understand life and to face challenges. So the kids' nervous system reset this is the second time we've run this program. It was wildly popular earlier in the year. We run through all the basics of play therapy so that you can learn to connect with your child through play in a way that helps them to process and to emotionally regulate. It's incredibly powerful and lots of fun.
Yeah, can I just say that I learnt this play therapy technique before Eleanor and I had even started the Reconnected, years before, actually. She reached out to me when I had my first son, and me and a couple of girlfriends, we had our first kids, and we went and we learnt this play therapy technique. And it was a absolute paradigm shift, because I am the first to admit, I remember I was at a park and I had this angelic little boy. My son Atlas was like blonde, blue eyes, just this didn't do anything but like play with like little sticks. And I'd see other kids at the park playing with guns. And I was like, what is wrong? I cannot believe that those parents are letting those kids play with guns. I just had absolutely no concept around play is always happening, and it is a way in which kids are expressing what is going on for them underneath. It was a total awareness shift for me and my friends, and it changed everything from that moment when I learned the trajectory of my parenting and witnessing what was happening for my children with their play. And it was so beautifully synergistic, because I was becoming a breathwork practitioner at the time, experiencing what is happening underneath, and then also with the play. It's so beautiful how these two things go together. And I felt very blessed to learn it, because it really blew my mind and my friends' minds at the time. Why aren't we being taught this? Why is this only in a play therapist's room? Like, why aren't people telling us that our children are expressing their emotions through play?
And here's a great example of from one of our community members about how this can be helpful in life. One of our families was preparing for a big interstate move, and they were prepping that their kids, who aged 4 and 2, would probably, be pretty out of whack. You're packing up a house for weeks on end, putting everything into a truck, driving for 2 days and arriving. And so they were fully prepared that first week would probably be, like parental torture, basically, it would just be off the charts. They'd be unpacking, the kids would be losing it, etc. And so what they did was they used some of the play therapy techniques and what we call connected play. They gave each child a connected play session before they left, during the trip, and then as soon as they arrived. And she messaged us that afternoon and said, I don't know what is going on, but I have managed to unpack the entire lounge room and the kids are just playing happily. They just are so calm. They seem to be, they're helping. They're not fighting. They're, like, what is going on? This is a miracle practice. Like it kind of is, when you first discover meditation or yoga and you go, oh, wow, I feel so light. I feel so free. Or when you have a conversation with your best friend you haven't seen for ages and you just feel that relief, like, oh, I feel so good after just sharing all that about myself. This way of being with children gives children that exact same feeling. It's like, oh, wow, I feel so much better about what's going on now. I can just
they
do
get
what I need.
relief.
That relief, yes.
And
they
also
don't need to be acting out or trying to grab our attention in other ways. They're really just feeling in contact with themselves and safe with that their adults really see them and get them.
And you can see that with some people really naturally can play really easily with children. I didn't have that when I had my kids. I was like, play? Ooh, I don't know what to do. This is awkward. Like, how do I get down there? Like I had no modeling around it. So for me, it was learning a whole new language. But that's the exciting thing, because there is essentially a script, but it is more about your own internal process makes it easier to hold the space and makes it easier to be with them in their play. So for those that are a bit scared and are like, oh, I don't know about playing.
Yeah, play doesn't really, and I think there's lots of parents out there that like, I don't do play.
So many.
Yeah. So even for those parents, this is going to be
100%.
Because it's essential if you are one of those, if you're in that category.
It's actually essential. And I'm not the play therapist in the Reconnected. Eleanor is, and play didn't come naturally to me at all. But this is a very different version of play. This is a real witnessing of our children and really, really seeing them for what they are, who they are, their mastery, what they're going through right now. It's really being the ultimate source of connection for them. It's so beautiful.
So the Kids Nervous System Reset goes over 3 days. It's online. There's replays. You do not need to be present to benefit. It's all in really little bite-sized chunks, audios you can listen to while you do other things. And we start on the 16th of September, which is really exciting. We can't wait to have a whole lot of your community join us, Jessica.
Yes. I'm sure our community are going to love this, and I can't wait to take part as well.
Great. Great.
So we will pop the link to the Kids Nervous System Reset in the show notes. So everyone can go on over and sign up. And am I right to say that it's free?
It's free.
It's 100% free.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
One of our most popular free offerings. But honestly, you can one of the things that we love doing is connecting with people via the free online communities, because you would be surprised how much you can shift and transform a lot of the current dynamics.
Yeah, it's free in price, but invaluable in information. We don't hold back, and it's not a giving you bite-sized chunks of things. It's really
no
just
teasers.
Actually teaching from our heart for 3 days, meeting a whole lot of new people. And we get so many beautiful messages come through our admin all year saying hey, I did your free offering, 7-8 months ago, and it radically changed my life. And, I've been implementing these certain things. So that really just lights us up. It gives us so much joy because, as I was saying when it comes to the play therapy, why weren't we taught this?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it just the norm?
Yes, it should be in that baby bag that we all
Baby bag, I
home.
know. It should be sent home
Exactly.
with nervous system regulation. a little note saying,
101.
hey, your children will trigger you.
Yes.
That's one. Yeah, and then play therapy.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well, we'd love to
definitely.
see as many people as possible there. So thanks, Jessica.
No
Yeah.
worries. Well, this has been such a great conversation. And like I said, I'll make sure that we put the link so it's really easy for people to find in the show notes. I recommend everyone sign up. Like, why wouldn't you? It sounds like it's going to be really easy to consume. It's not going to take a huge amount of kind of time or effort, but the results that you will get from this, I mean, all of us need a bit of this in our lives. So thank you so much for joining me, ladies, on the podcast.
Thank you so much. So lovely to meet you, and we'll talk again, no doubt.
Talk soon. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week.